Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and on the show today, with Ukrainian negotiators waiting nearby, a meeting between Russian and US officials on a partial ceasefire in Ukraine has ended after 12 hours of negotiation in Saudi Arabia. While the talks took place as aggression continues on the battlefield, and in the latest, nearly 90 people, including 17 children, were wounded in a missile attack on Sumy in northeastern Ukraine.
Of course, we'll get you all the details on that, but also on the show today, US officials are reacting with shock to revelations that top members of President Donald Trump's cabinet sent detailed operational plans and other likely highly classified information about US military strikes on Yemen to a group thread on a messaging app to which a reporter had accidentally been added to. The Trump administration acknowledged the messages that will bring you all the latest on that detail. Will be coming in, but first the headlines.
The White House says top Trump administration officials mistakenly disclosed military plans to a US journalist after he was added to a messaging group, as before the United States hit Houthi rebels in Yemen.
Hamas publishes video of two Israeli hostages, Elkanah Bobot and Yosef Chaim Ohana, were among the 24 living hostages slated for release in the planned second stage of the ceasefire deal.
Israeli military issues fresh calls to evacuate parts of Gaza's north, says it intercepted two projectiles launched from the Gaza Strip and another from Yemen.
Police in Turkey uses pepper spray, tear gas, and plastic bullets to disperse a crowd of protesters gathered for the sixth consecutive day in front of Istanbul City Hall in the latest protests over the arrest and jailing of Istanbul's opposition mayor.
US and Russia are expected to release joint statement today after Russian and American officials hold 12 hours of negotiations in Saudi Arabia on a partial ceasefire in Ukraine.
A Bangladeshi court orders seizure of cricketer Shakib al-Hassan's assets. Shakib, a former lawmaker from the party of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, is being prosecuted on fraud charges for allegedly bouncing checks totaling more than $300,000.
Consumer sentiment in the US weakens as households grow wary of economic uncertainty. Despite a pickup in business activity, concerns over tariffs and deep government spending cuts weigh on outlook.
Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter and France's three-time Ballon d'Or winner Michele Platini will learn their fate in corruption case today. The pair will appear before a Swiss court. All right, our top story on World DNA. Ukraine has accused Moscow of making hollow statements about peace after 88 people were injured in a Russian missile attack.
Well, the strikes in Sumy came as US and Russian officials were holding talks in Saudi Arabia. The talks ended after 12 hours of negotiation.
Now, according to Russian state media, a joint statement is expected soon. And a day after Ukrainian negotiators sat down with U.S. officials, the Americans and Russians met in Riyadh with a Black Sea ceasefire at the top of the agenda. Donald Trump is pushing for a rapid end to the 3-year war and hopes the latest round of talks will pave the way for a breakthrough.
Well, the Russian delegation was seen leaving Riyadh after talks with U.S. negotiators. The Department of State has said that fabulous changes have occurred towards a ceasefire in Ukraine after the talks.
No, but while the talks took place, nearly 90 people, including 17 children, were wounded in a missile attack on Sumy in northeastern Ukraine. As per Ukrainian officials, the strike hit residential buildings and educational facilities in the city, and a hospital has been affected as well.
Вони працюють за забором, вони...
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that rescue operations are still ongoing, adding that fortunately the children at the school were in a shelter.
Now, despite Trump's push for a rapid end to the conflict, attacks have continued unabated in Ukraine, including on the region of Sumy that borders Russia. As talks continue in Riyadh, Zelensky stressed that a movement is needed towards security and peace. He added that progress in the talks is necessary for all those in the world who seek stability in international relations.
Сьогодні представники Сполучених Штатів Америки.
Today, US representatives spoke with the war team with the representatives of Russia, and afterwards, again a meeting of the Ukrainian and American teams. I'm expecting a new report. We need a movement towards real peace, towards guaranteed security. This is necessary for everyone, in Ukraine, in Europe, in America, and for all those in the world who seek stability in international relations.
В Україні, в Європі, в Америці, усім в світі, хто хоче.
All right, now let's shift our focus to West Asia, where Palestinian militant group Hamas has published a video of 2 Israeli hostages, which is a week after talks between Israel and Hamas on a ceasefire deal collapsed and Israel resumed fighting in Gaza.
Now, the video shows Israeli hostages Elkanah Bobot and Yosef Haim Ohana sitting in an unidentified location addressing a former hostage who was released on February 8th during the ceasefire deal and pleading for their return home.
Well, 35-year-old Bobot and 24-year-old Ohana were kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th, 2023 from the Nova Music Festival.
I am prisoner number 21.
I am prisoner number 22, and until yesterday, I had a name, and I had an identity, and I had hope. Today, I am just another number. Let everyone know you know how much suffering we are going through all the time. You know how it's like during wartime and how it's like during ceasefire deal. I haven't been released yet. Explain to them how hard it is for me. Every day here is hard for me without my son and without my wife. Tell them how much I suffer.
Hostage Bobot has a 4-year-old child and a wife. His family reacted to the video with a statement appealing to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump to secure the hostages' release.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military has issued fresh calls to evacuate parts of Gaza's north as Israel pressed its renewed bombardment and ground operation in the Palestinian territory.
The IDF released a video claiming that it targeted trucks used for terrorist purposes in Gaza, including the October 7th attacks.
Well, Israel's military said it intercepted a total of 3 projectiles launched from the Gaza Strip. Both Hamas and its allies, Islamic Jihad, said they had launched rockets towards Israel.
Now, following which, the IDF issued an evacuation warning for Palestinians in the Jabalia area, saying that it is a final warning before the IDF carries out strikes in the area.
Well, Gaza's civil defense agency said an Israeli drone strike killed a journalist in Beit Lahia. According to the agency, the airstrike targeted more than 10 cars in various parts of Gaza. Journalist Hussam Shabat's car was hit in one of these strikes near a petrol station. The health ministry in Hamas-run Gaza said 730 people have been killed since Israel resumed bombardments on the Palestinian territory on March 18th.
Meanwhile, Israel's military said it intercepted a missile launched from Yemen after air raid sirens sounded in central parts of the country, including Tel Aviv. It is the 6th time the military says it has intercepted a missile launched from Yemen since last Tuesday.
Furthermore, the United Nations said a strike on its buildings in Gaza last week that killed one employee and injured several others was caused by an Israeli tank, a claim which is disputed by the country's government.
Now, Israel's military said its forces operating in Rafah in southern Gaza fired at a Red Cross building after mistakenly identifying suspects inside and feeling a threat to the force. An ICRC office in the southern Gaza Strip was damaged by an explosive projectile on Monday.
Meanwhile, Egypt has floated a new proposal aimed at restoring the Gaza ceasefire deal. The Egyptian proposal made last week calls for Hamas to release 5 Israeli hostages each week, with Israel implementing the second phase of the ceasefire after the first week.
And for the broader.
And well, in a major security blunder by the Trump administration, a U.S. journalist was inadvertently included in a group chat where senior members of the cabinet discussed military plans, strikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels.
Well, Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was added to a signal text group in which the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and others planned military strikes. The White House has confirmed Goldberg was accidentally texted classified military information after he published a first-hand account in The Atlantic.
Now, Goldberg writes how he was inadvertently added to a private chat Houthi PC small group on the messaging app Signal. The journalist mentioned that while he initially thought it was a prank, the reality hit him when the U.S. actually started pounding Yemen hours after the messages were received.
Goldberg claims that he was added to a private chat called the Houthi PC small group. Signal is not approved by the U.S. government for sharing sensitive information. He has further claimed that the U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth sent details of the U.S. strikes, and this includes precise information about weapon packages, targets, and timing.
Now, as per The Atlantic editor, the chat had top senior U.S. officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes has said that the message thread that was reported appears to be authentic, that the administration was reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain.
However, Hegseth has denied the claim, saying no one had texted war plans. He went to criticize the journalist as deceitful and accused him of repeatedly spreading hoaxes.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, Russia, Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
Democratic lawmakers swiftly blasted the misstep, saying it was a breach of U.S. national security and a violation of law that must be investigated by Congress.
On this text chain, conversations went at length about imminent military operations, including specific targets, weapons, and attack plans. These text messages very likely included classified U.S. intelligence. And the entire time, nobody seemed to realize that a private citizen without security clearance had access to this conversation. Mr. President, This is one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence I have read about in a very, very long time.
Well, it's interesting to note that even as the White House admitted to having accidentally leaked classified details about the strikes, it said that President Trump continues to have the utmost confidence in his national security team. The US president earlier said he did not know anything about the issue.
And well, to give us more details on the story, our correspondent Susan Tirani sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
In a possible significant security lapse, top Trump administration officials, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Vice President J.D. Vance, inadvertently included journalist Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal group chat discussing military operations against Yemen's Houthi rebels. Goldberg alleges that the chat included military operations and plans, targets, even weaponry. The National Security Council has confirmed the authenticity of the communications and says that it has launched an investigation into this possible breach. Now, this has caused bipartisan concern about the handling of classified information on encrypted messaging apps for official communication. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that no sensitive military plans were revealed during those conversations. Susan Tirani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Meanwhile, amid criticism over U.S. Second Lady Usha Vance's Greenland visit by Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister and other leaders who called the visit provocation, Donald Trump has defended it, saying that the visit is about friendliness.
Well, the U.S. president called the visit by the Second Lady and the U.S. delegation friendly, before adding that it is Greenland that is calling the U.S. there.
Mr. President, also about Ukraine.
Yeah, well, not provocation. This is friendliness, not provocation. We're dealing with a lot of people from Greenland that would like to see something happen with respect to their being properly protected and properly taken care of. They're calling us, we're not calling them.
During the cabinet meeting, Trump reiterated his previous statements. Greenland might be in U.S. future.
But we've been invited, and they really like the idea because they have been somewhat abandoned, as you know. They haven't been taken good care of. And I think Greenland's going to be something that maybe is in our future. I think it's important. It's important from the standpoint of international security.
Greenland's outgoing Prime Minister Pete Hegseth termed the private visit of the U.S. Vice President's wife, along with U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, politically motivated, and stated his caretaker government would not meet the delegation.
Well, Vance is scheduled to visit the territory on March 27th. Now, according to her itinerary, she will visit historical sites, learn about Greenlandic heritage, and attend Greenland's national dog sled race. Ecuador is heading for a presidential runoff. Voting is to be held in April, and the incumbent and the challenger took part in a televised debate.
Well, President Daniel Noboa and opposition leader Luisa Gonzalez laid out their policy perspectives before the final vote on April 13th. The debate focused on dollarization and efforts to quell activities of drug cartels and gang violence.
It's been a close race. In the first round of voting in February, Noboa and Gonzalez were separated by just 19,800 votes. Now, in terms of vote percentage, the difference was only 0.17%, with Noboa securing 44.17% and Gonzalez right behind him with 44% of the vote.
With the rest of the candidates out of the race, the swing can be provided by indigenous candidate Leonidas Isa, who got 5% vote in the first round. Leonidas has refused to endorse any of the candidates, but has called on her supporters not to vote for the right, which is, in his eyes, represented by Noboa.
Well, in the past year, Ecuador had intensified its crackdown on drug cartels and gang violence after President Noboa declared a war on organized crime by deploying the armed forces. However, human rights organizations have accused the Ecuadorian president of abuses, murders and forced disappearances.
De siempre. Adiós esos políticos viejos. Ya es momento de un cambio de verdad.
Well, the political crisis in South Korea has taken another dramatic turn.
Major legal relief has been granted to impeached Prime Minister Han Duck-soo after the country's constitutional court dismissed his impeachment.
The judges voted 7-1 to dismiss the impeachment. The judgment reinstated Duck-soo as the acting president, confirming his return to the interim post. Duck-soo has urged for political parties to cooperate and overcome the crisis that began in December last year.
The government of Republic of Korea has added the
다시 한번
I sincerely ask for bipartisan cooperation between the ruling and opposition parties so that the Republic of Korea can once again move forward and get through the current crisis.
부탁드립니다.
South Koreans had mixed reactions to Duck-soo's impeachment being dismissed.
나라가 빨리 안정돼서
Since it doesn't meet the grounds for impeachment, those people are well versed in law, right? They thoroughly reviewed and examined everything, held a trial, and since it didn't meet the criteria, they dismissed it.
환영합니다, 하여튼.
There were parts that I found a bit hard to accept when looking at it from the perspective of law and common sense. However, resolving this chaotic political situation is the top priority right now, so I hope it gets resolved well somehow.
However, the Constitutional Court is yet to announce a date for delivering a verdict on impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Lawmakers impeached Yoon after the December debacle when the suspended president briefly imposed martial law in the country, sending South Korea into a spiraling political crisis.
And Istanbul's jailed mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu has been officially nominated as the presidential candidate for the 2028 election.
The announcement, of course, was made by the Republican People's Party, or the CHP, after the primary elections that was held on Sunday.
Well, the CHP, which is Turkey's second largest party in parliament, conducted the primary election in which İmamoğlu was the sole candidate. İmamoğlu's nomination names him as the primary opposition to President Erdogan.
İmamoğlu's nomination comes amid a dramatic series of events that have seen him arrested, interrogated, jailed, and stripped of his mayorship in under a week. The crackdown stems from a graft and terrorism-related investigation that opposition figures have described as a politically motivated coup, something which has been echoed by the jailed mayor's wife.
Our conscience is clear. Our head is held high. The decision that was taken unjustly, illegally, has no aspect of justice. All the decisions taken are political. We will continue on our path.
Well, as protests continue for the sixth straight day, the Interior Minister of Turkey has said that 1,100 people have been detained since protests began on March 19th. 10 journalists have also been arrested for covering the imprisonment and protests that followed.
Meanwhile, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has said that protests over jailing of Istanbul mayor are a movement of violence.
İstanbul merkezli bir yolsuzluk operasyonu.
Together with our nation, we are following the events that began after a street call by the main opposition leader following a corruption operation centered in Istanbul, which quickly turned into a movement of violence. 123 of our security personnel were injured in 5 days due to attacks by marginal organizations and city bandits.
Örgütlerin ve şehir eşkıyalarının saldırıları sebebiyle.
Well, to put things in context, 53-year-old Ekrem İmamoğlu has been active politically for a decade now. Formerly a businessman, İmamoğlu joined politics when he was 43. Now a senior leader of the Republican People's Party and considered Erdogan's arch rival. He gained prominence after winning the 2019 Istanbul mayoral election. His win came as a major setback to Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who considered Istanbul his bastion and home ground.
Now, but İmamoğlu, considered a kind and approachable politician by many, won the election again in 2024. All right, moving on. A startling new development in the ongoing battle against avian influenza for the first time in history.
Well, bird flu has been detected in a sheep in northern England.
The case was confirmed during a routine surveillance on a farm in Yorkshire, where the infected sheep was discovered among a flock previously affected by the virus and captive birds. In an immediate response to contain the spread of virus, the UK government ordered the culling of the infected along with all affected birds.
While avian influenza has been known to infect a range of mammals, including cats, bears, tigers, and even dolphins, this is the first documented case in a sheep. A development that significantly heightens concerns over how the virus may spread.
Experts warn that the virus's ability to jump between species is becoming more pronounced, raising fears that it could mutate in ways that increase the risk to human health. And this comes as the world grapples with the devastating impact of virus, which has already led to deaths of millions of birds worldwide.
For example, the United States has been grappling with a devastating bird flu outbreak that was wiped out more than 170 million birds since 2022, leading to soaring egg prices. Well, the United Nations has issued a warning about the unprecedented scale of this outbreak, highlighting its severe impact on food production, rural economics, and consumer.
Now, with this latest discovery in the UK, the question remains is that how far will this virus spread and what will its consequences be for both animals and humans?
And it's time now for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, a Bangladesh court ordered the seizure of cricketer Shakib Al-Hasan's assets in the latest legal headache for the sports star over his allegiance to the country's former leader Sheikh Hasina.
Also, on the other side, Asia's largest tulip garden will be open to the public from March 26th in Srinagar in Kashmir. The garden is said to have over 1.7 million tulips of 74 varieties. More up on the other side. Stay tuned.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The scenes of jubilant soldiers in Khartoum mark a significant advance in an offensive that has seen Sudan's army seize back swathes of territory in recent months. They have retaken the presidential palace and believe they are on course to win back the rest of the capital. Climate change is melting the huge ice blocks off of Africa's second highest mountain. Mount Kenya is slowly transforming from a landscape of snow and ice to brown rock. And find out why Kirsty Coventry's powerful role in sport as a 10th International Olympic Committee president is both groundbreaking and controversial. World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Joseph Kumar, and my colleague Disha Bisla. Let's begin with the headlines.
Indian comedian Kunal Kamra refuses to apologize for his jibe at Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister, says making fun of leaders is not against the law.
The United States reacts to alleged human rights violations in Bangladesh. State Department says it expects Dhaka to follow the rules of human rights and to be cognizant and fair regarding this behavior and what their own citizens expect from their government.
Deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the,
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth rejects reports that he shared military plans on an unclassified signal chat. Accuses Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg, who reported on the text, of being deceitful and discredited.
Houthi rebels say they launched 2 missiles targeting Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. Air raid sirens and explosions were heard over Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and central Israel as the Israeli military said it intercepted a missile launched from Yemen.
Hamas publishes video of 2 Israeli hostages, Elkanah Bobot and Yosef Haim Ohana. They were among the 24 living hostages slated for release in the planned second stage of the ceasefire deal.
Police in Turkey used pepper spray, tear gas, and plastic bullets to disperse a crowd of protesters gathered for the 6th consecutive day in front of Istanbul City Hall in the latest protest over the arrest and jailing of Istanbul's opposition mayor.
Tesla shares surge on tariff relief hopes, rebounding from a steep decline this year. Investors capitalize on the stock's 40% drop, fueling a broader market rally led by tech stocks.
Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter and France's three-time Ballon d'Or winner Michel Platini will learn their fate in corruption case today. The pair will appear before a Swiss court.
Well, even as the probe continues into the alleged discovery of a cash pile at the residence of Delhi High Court Judge Justice Yashwant Verma, the decision to transfer Justice Verma and his parent court in Allahabad has sparked outrage.
Now, Allahabad, of course, the Bar Association has strongly opposed the transfer of Delhi High Court Justice Yashwant Verma to his parent court. The decision has been taken after a bar meeting in Prayagraj. The Allahabad Bar has passed 11 resolutions expressing outrage over the move. It calls for an impartial probe while raising questions on system of judicial appointments. The Allahabad Bar has called for an indefinite strike from today.
एक बात स्पष्ट है, पहले कहते हैं कि ट्रांसफर नहीं हुआ, फिर कहते हैं ट्रांसफर से इस घटना से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, लेकिन आज उसी घटना को लिंक करते हुए उन्होंने ट्रांसफर किया। इसका मतलब ये है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कोई बात कंसील किया, हम लोगों को सुप्रीम कोर्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने सही बात नहीं बताई।
Justice Verma, whose name has been embroiled in controversy after recovery of burnt currency notes from his residence, Supreme Court of India earlier ordered to repatriate Verma to the Allahabad High Court.
Now, according to the inquiry report released by Supreme Court on March 14th, a fire broke out at Justice Verma's official home in New Delhi's Tughlaq Crescent. Justice Verma's personal secretary reported the fire, after which firefighters arrived at the scene. The firefighters allegedly found piles of burnt currency notes in the storeroom of the residence. Some debris and half-burnt items on March 15th were removed from the storeroom.
Justice Verma has denied any involvement with the cash, claiming that neither he nor his family stored or removed any money from the storeroom where the fire erupted. He has also described the situation as an attempt to malign his reputation.
Justice Verma has been relieved of his judicial duties pending the inquiry. Also, the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court, Devendra Kumar Upadhyay, acting on Chief Justice of India, Sanjeev Khanna's directive, has instructed Justice Verma not to dispose of his phones or delete or modify any conversation message or data from them. And a day after his controversial comments led to a political war of words and vandalism in India's Maharashtra, comedian Kunal Kamra has issued a response to in the entire controversy.
In a post on social media platform X, Kamra refused to apologize for his comments on the state's Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, and he criticized that the vandalism of the venue where the show was recorded.
The controversy broke out when a joke from Kamra's recent stand-up went viral on social media. In a video that went viral, Kamra took a jibe at Shinde for switching sides and mocked the Deputy Chief Minister with a traitor remark using a Bollywood song.
The remark did not go down well with party men of the political strongmen. Supporters of Eknath Shinde ransacked the venue where the show was recorded and threatened the comedian with dire consequences.
The vandalism prompted Mumbai police to arrest 12 Shiv Sena leaders who were later released on bail. Mumbai's Habitat studio that previously hosted the event has announced closure until further notice.
The controversy has triggered political misleading between Maharashtra's ruling coalition and the opposition parties.
Shiv Sena MP Naresh Haske has alleged that Kamra was paid by Shiv Sena's rival faction to target Shinde.
The FIR filed by Shiv Sena also names rival faction leader Aditya Thackeray and Sanjay Raut as well as Congress leader Rahul Gandhi.
Shiv Sena UBT leader Aditya Thackeray has hit out at the Deputy Chief Minister and called him an insecure coward. The opposition party has also hit out at the ruling BJP Shiv Sena government for targeting Kamra.
Now, reacting to the controversy, Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis said that while there is freedom to do stand-up comedy, defaming the Deputy CM purposefully is not right.
There is freedom to do stand-up comedy, but he cannot speak whatever he wants. The people of Maharashtra have decided who the traitor is. Kunal Kamra should apologize. This will not be tolerated. There is the right to do comedy, but if it is being done to defame our Deputy CM Eknath Shinde purposely, it is not right.
The cases of comedians being targeted for making jokes have increased recently. Kamra himself has multiple FIRs against him for allegedly making offensive remarks against Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Recent controversy regarding jokes made on an online show called India's Got Latent also triggered widespread debates on freedom of speech in the country.
All right, and moving on, the trouble for Shakib al-Hasan seems to be growing. A Bangladeshi court ordered the seizure of Hassan's assets in the latest legal headache for the former Bangladesh cricket captain.
Shakib is a former lawmaker from the party of former Prime Minister leader Sheikh Hasina, who was overthrown in a student-led uprising last year and fled to neighboring India. His links to Hasina has made him a target of public anger, and he was among dozens facing murder investigations for a deadly police crackdown on protesters during the uprising. He has not been charged over those allegations, but is currently being prosecuted on fraud charges for allegedly bouncing checks totaling more than $300,000.
A magistrate in the capital Dhaka ordered the seizure of his assets on Monday after a warrant for Shakib's arrest was issued by the court in January.
Shakib was playing in a domestic 2020 cricket competition in Canada when Hasina's government collapsed and has not returned to Bangladesh since. The left-arm all-rounder has played 71 tests, 247 one-day internationals and 129 2020s for Bangladesh, taking a combined 712 wickets. And with over 1.7 million tulips of 74 varieties, Asia's largest tulip garden in Srinagar, Kashmir is all set to be thrown open to the public from March 26th.
Well, hundreds of gardeners are working tirelessly to make sure the garden is in full bloom at the time of the opening. Our special correspondent Idris Sloan gets you more on this report. Take a look.
The tulip garden, located below the Zabarwan Hills and overlooking the world-famous Dal Lake, is looking no less than a floral wonderland. The floriculture department is also planning a tulip spring festival in the month of April.
This show, Tulip Show 2025, will be a glamorous show, displaying a showcase of vibrant colors in which we are going to display almost 74 tulip varieties only. Apart from this, we have a very good collection of daffodils, hyacinths and muscaries that will give a vibrant look and a rainbow of colors, as Tulip Garden has a history in the earlier times.
Hundreds of gardeners and staff are working day and night to ready the garden for public. It takes around 6 months to get the garden ready, and huge planning is done much ahead of the opening of the garden. This year, the Floriculture Department expects all previous records of tourist footfall to be broken. The Tulip Garden has become famous among people across India. A lot of travelers plan their visit to the valley during the tulip bloom. This year, the Floriculture Department has planted other varieties of flowers like hyacinths, daffodils,